Hey there, this is Andy Greider, and I am the host and producer of Unique This Week. It is a production of Uniqueness is Power. Really happy to have another excellent episode going into the books here. We are so fortunate to have folks with us to talk about important subjects. And today we're going to be talking about the peril that a lot of Americans are in, but they don't even know it. A lot of the time, there's 1.4 million ID theft reports to the FTC every year. The fraud is the only thing in that side of things that actually outnumbers it at 2.7, and they're kind of the same thing anyway. A lot of the time, by 2029, ID theft protection services are going to be a $28 billion industry. And with new players in the market all the time, it is absolutely important to have a trusted name with a reputable background, and a really solid service that's been proven time and time again. So to that end, we have Jane Lehman with us today. Jane is with Legal Shield, and she is going to talk to us about all the ins and outs of ID theft and where people get snagged and where they fall into trouble. She's been helping clients and companies now for the last 16 years to equip, inform, educate, advocate, and protect themselves in ways that are really brilliant and smart. Jane, I want to thank you for taking the time to be here today, and really, really excited for where we're headed with this opportunity.
Oh, thank you so much, Andy. It's really an important topic. As an independent associate with Legal Shield, it's a lot of what we do is education. So I'm really happy to be here and help people understand what is really going on with identity theft.
So that's, I mean, the stats up front are kind of alarming when you hear those numbers. As an individual, I think a lot of people end up sort of ostriching head in the sand about it. It'll never happen to me. So let's talk about what the how correct or incorrect that assumption is.
Well, we all say that. We say that about everything until it happens to us, right? But with identity theft, people are now much more aware. It's happening more and more over the years. It's been happening. I've had people tell me that, when I say that our company is 52 years old, well, we didn't have identity theft. They think of it as being 20 years old. Well, there was identity theft in the Bible, folks.
Yeah.
So it goes back a way, way, way far back in history, right? But what's happening now with AI, especially, it's just incredible what's happening.
So when somebody is facing identity theft, I know everybody says, "Oh, well, I've got a company that has my back," or maybe I through my credit card or through something I signed up for. There's all these companies that have hit the market that are tied in somehow, somewhere. What you do with your services, both on the identity theft side and then the legal shield side, is so much more comprehensive, and it's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on.
Thank you.
Let's
Yeah.
talk to let's talk to what all can be involved in an identity theft case. What does that mean to an individual, time-wise, otherwise? What does it mean to their employer? Let's delve into that a little bit, Jane.
Okay, let's start first where you gave some facts at the beginning. One was about fraud and one was about identity theft. And identity theft, when they're talking real identity theft, you're talking about medical identity theft. You're talking about character criminal identity theft, where they take you and they make you're a criminal. You don't even know it. And we're talking about the areas of identity theft that are not going through a credit bureau, for example. Fraud, yes. When you somebody's using your social to get a loan, or they've compromised your credit card, things like that. That is financial identity theft, financial fraud.
Mhm.
But there are so much bigger things that it can affect you in many ways. For example, in the medical, somebody's using your information. They've now compromised your health insurance, I should say, all of your information. They've changed your blood type. They've had procedures done. They're getting prescriptions filled. And it's things that if you go in, say, for an emergency, and you don't realize that your information has been changed, you've got the wrong blood type suddenly. They're giving you medications you shouldn't be having, and it's very
Hmm.
dangerous, right?
Goodness gracious. I mean, and that's stuff I don't think anybody even thinks of as identity theft or even realizes could happen. Everybody thinks, oh, they hacked my bank account. That's identity theft. Oh, they used my name to rent a car or to buy a boat or to whatever
Right.
else. And they think of that as identity theft. You just hit on some other pieces that are both far more far reaching, but also terrifying. So let's talk about a couple other places where that might play in, and then let's talk about what effect that has directly on someone as an employee and an employer as well.
Okay. Well, for example, another area was a woman once approached me and said that her 2-year-old had bought a BMW in New York.
Ah,
We
ah.
laughed at that, right? I said, "How did you find that out?" She said, "We were getting him a bank account and they did a background check and there's a line of credit, but my son's got great credit because the guy's paying for the car." And we just looked at her and said, "That is not good news. By the time your son's 18, that social security number will have been sold over and over for different things. And you don't know, his credit will not be good, right?" And this is causing people to go to work. And without thinking about it, we've got these underlying thoughts of what if, and things are happening. You're not focused on your work. You're focused on private issues that you need to take care of. If you have a true identity theft issue, it could take up to 600 hours to take care of that.
Say that
And you're
again. 600
600,
hours.
they say 600 hours to get out of this a real identity theft issue. I had a friend that was a physical therapist at a hospital. She was accused, she had bench warrants out for her arrest. It wasn't even her, but they cannot let her work. So she couldn't even go to work because her credit was, I mean, her background was, she was a felon, according to her background. That happened to a school teacher as well, who had, she went to get a new driver's license and found out that she had 8 bench warrants out for her arrest in states she had never been to, and it was for prostitution. Now, a second grade teacher, and I don't say what state this happened in because it can be any state, anywhere, your state, it can happen everywhere, you know. So she ended up having, she couldn't teach because she had felonies on her record. She had to get that cleaned up first. All right.
And if
And
you're trying to do that yourself, first of all, you're at a huge disadvantage because you don't know how.
you don't know how.
You're grasping at straws. You're throwing, spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks, maybe. And most
Right.
of the time, you're not even sure where to find the spaghetti, so to speak, to continue the sort of bad analogy. I think that, I mean, and that's somebody that actually had this happen to me back in 04, 03, 04. That cost me at least 80 hours of my life, and it was only my bank account being hacked. If
Right.
somebody hacked my account looking like they were me. So I've got a little bit of personal experience, and I was also fortunate enough to be a client at that point individually. But even then, it still took 40 hours of my life. It took them probably 80 to 100 hours to clear it all up, and get me back on track. But I also was out that money.
Yeah.
Even with the help, I was out that money for almost a month.
Right.
I would have been out that money for good if it hadn't been for the help.
You
So,
know, I'm sorry. We recently had a case of a woman who was a widow. Her husband had died about a year earlier. She had $78,000 in her account. And she got a call from Medicare wanting to make sure she was okay, that everything's in line. And she talked to them for about a half hour. And it wasn't until she hung up that she realized maybe that wasn't really Medicare. And it wasn't.
of course not.
Medicare doesn't call you. And she called her daughter quickly, and before they could do anything, $78,000 were gone from her bank account. She called her bank and she explained what happened. And the bank said, "Well, you gave that information voluntarily. We can't do anything." And she said, "Well, wait a minute. I have ID Shield. That's our product." She called up and they got to work on it. When you call our services, you're talking to an actual investigator, certified investigator that's taking care of these things, not a company that's going to send you a list of what you need to do. So the investigators got to work on it. Well, several months went by and the bank called her and said, "You've got to come down here and sign some papers. There's money in your account." Well, $60,000 had been put back in her account. The bank knew nothing. We don't know where this came from. She called ID Shield back and they said, "Yes, ma'am, we've been working on this and we were able to recover so far $60,000. They are still working on it."
Wow.
That's the difference in having your bank. We make mistakes and it's not our fault, but the other party's they don't want to be liable for that, right? But we're in there, we're doing the work. We are feet on the ground doing work for people. So it's powerful.
It is powerful. And the amount of phishing and gotcha schemes and things like that are out there outside of the AI. You mentioned AI. That's a whole other
Mhm.
can of worms to open up. But I can say personally, my mom, who is still fairly with it. She still made a mistake when talking to somebody. She Googled how to help with their printer, and somebody that has a spoof number up that ended up being, when you called it back, it was out of service. But it showed up on the Google search, and so
Uh-huh.
she immediately thought, well, that must be Epson, and so
Mhm.
she called them, and she ended up talking to somebody who had her install the look at my computer.
Mhm.
And my dad was on the phone with me, and he's like, Kath, what are you doing? To my so we
Oh,
are. I'm like, Mom, hang up the phone. It's not who you're talking to. I promise you.
oh my gosh. That is so good that you were on the phone. Have you seen the
No,
movie The Beekeeper?
I have not, but I've heard of it.
Yeah,
Yes. No.
just the first 15 minutes or so are says it all. We don't know who we're talking to, and we're still very trusting, and other times we're not trusting at all when we should be. But I have to get a quick word in here about the AI, because now you don't even know that it's not your son, daughter, wife, husband, whoever, aunt calling you, because the AI voices are exactly like the people you love. And we recommend highly have a family code word. If you don't get anything else from this podcast, have a family code word that when someone calls you and says, oh my gosh, I need $200 immediately, blah, 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 you say, well, what's the family code word? And if they can't give you that word, you hang up immediately, because we really don't know who's on the other end of the line, even when it sounds exactly like the person we think it is.
Hmm. That is a great tip. And quite frankly, again, if our listeners take nothing else away, which I'm sure they will, still
Mhm.
take plenty of other things away. Um, it is absolutely critical to defend yourself with I would say more traditional methods, right? That's the key right there. It's
Communication.
yeah, communication and knowing what to ask and of whom.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And there's I've heard other variations of that, but just a keyword is even to me that's even smarter. So let's talk about this in terms of we've talked about it in terms of an individual a lot, and
Right.
we covered some of the aspects of where it can go sideways. In the interest of time, because I want to make sure we get to a bunch of other things, let's switch gears to what this means if you have an employee. You kind of mentioned you can have an employee who's distracted, non-productive, even out of work, even being barred from coming to work potentially if they have a
Right.
situation. Um, what does it mean to the employer as far as a tangible cost to them to put a program like this in place versus the slightly less tangible but very real cost of having even one case of employee identity theft that happens? Let's talk
Well,
about
the big threat is, what if your business is hacked? And I'm sorry, the US government's been hacked, the Air Force has been hacked. We all watched the country, Russia got hacked 6 times in 1 month back there, several years ago. We could all be hacked at any time. It's not hard to get into a person's computer. And that's not to scare people, it's just to wake you up. If you just have monitoring services, well, that's better. Anything is better than nothing. But what happens after that? So when a business would get hacked, now that employer has employees whose data has been stolen, uh, you want to have services that can help you immediately get your employees help, so that they've got professionals working on it, on any data being stolen, being watching what's going on the dark web and all these things. So for a business, that's important. I mean, and it doesn't have to cost the business owner anything. We offer our services either as a voluntary benefit. It can be payroll deducted. It can be self-pay. It's totally up to the employer how he wants to offer that. They can do it as a fringe benefit, which of course most don't. I have several small companies that fringe benefit the identity theft protection for that very reason, but they also get the legal protection at a discounted rate, so that when you have real identity theft, you're going to need a lawyer. If you have felonies on your record, you need a lawyer,
yeah.
right? So we offer both of those, and it doesn't have to cost the business owner anything, but the time that we come in to present it to the employees.
Well, and it's, to me, having been a part of the insurance world in the past, as much as it pains me to admit that sometimes, um, you know, it's the same people that say to you, "Oh, well, my friend was just in a car accident. Can we get better insurance for him?" Well, not that's retroactive. Oh, we didn't have health insurance, so now we have to go to GoFundMe because my 29-year-old son was killed in a car accident. He didn't have insurance. He needs to do something to bury him for his kids. Those are not the conversations you ever want to hear when you're in those positions. And I'm sure there's very similar conversations for you, Jane, where people say, they're reactive rather than proactive, and they end up coming back and saying, uh, you know, wow, I really could have used a lawyer. So let's talk about that, or I could have used the ID theft protection. Let's talk about why it's important to do it now.
Well, I'm so glad you brought that up. On the side of the identity theft protection, when it comes to an employee benefit group, we offer it when they get identity theft protection. They can have pre-existing issues, and we will take care of those on the identity theft side. So they can already be talking to the investigators. The legal is not pre-existing, but you can already talk to the lawyers and get advice. And from there going on, then you're covered, right? But that's really important. So that's a huge benefit for an employer to offer this to employees that may already be having issues. Our investigators are there for them right away.
Right. Understood. Very, very, very important, as you said.
Mm-hmm.
Very important.
And we take it seriously because it's growing. It's not getting less. I mean, people are just finally waking up to it. We've been offering these services now for 24 years. And like I said, the company that we originally started with was also a 52-year-old company, a risk management company. This kind of stuff has been happening for ages. We just didn't have computers and didn't have the access to know about it. Now, as you know, we're getting information right and left all day long.
Right. Well, I was going to say, you also get to use the AI productively and in a positive manner to help monitor and help do the other things. But as you said, the other thing I wanted to cover, and I think this is critical for everybody that's listening to understand the difference. You've said it two different ways. I want to come back to it as a question, which is, what is the difference between what you're doing and what the monitoring services or these brand new fly-by-night companies that have popped up that are going to quote unquote, give you protection? You mentioned, they'll send you a list of what you need to do. They'll monitor, but then what do you need to do next? They might not even have a list to send you. So what is the advantage to using somebody that has been around 52 years as a core and then has these other services in place?
Well, pretty much everything that you see out there. I don't care if you're looking at the biggest ones or not. They took the concept from us, and that's okay. Competitions, we don't have anything against competition, but look at what you're buying. A lot of these services will increase your rates the second year, and we don't do this. We don't do that. We're there immediately. What you pay is what you pay. It covers the entire family. We have an individual plan, but we do not have different levels of service, except that we have 1 bureau monitoring or 3 bureau monitoring, but everybody gets the exact same services. If you don't have the top of the line, whatever company you're with, if you don't have their top of the line service, then you might as well not have anything, because you really need it. And that's where we do it all. It's not just the monitoring. It's what happens when they find something. And we don't give our customers what I call blissfully ignorant alerts. Oh, look, we saw something. Great, now what? Oh, nothing, we just saw something. What is that? I've had people tell me, well, this X company gives a lot more alerts. Yeah, was it necessary? You knew you bought gasoline, or Now, if you're 200 miles away and you could buy gasoline and that doesn't look right, we might alert you for that, right? So we alert people when it's necessary, and when there's something, they get on it immediately. For example, Andy, you left your wallet at the restaurant. You get home and you go, oh my God, I'm on my way back to the restaurant, but I left it there. We can hold that. They'll put a hold on everything. And then you find out, oh, no, you didn't. You left it home on your dining room table. They'll open it back up again. Right. So you don't have to cancel everything immediately, but they're watching it until you're secure.
Yeah. It's very powerful. Now, we're going to need to wrap up here in just a minute. Okay. So I want to ask one final question, which is, if somebody's interested in this, first of all, can they buy the ID theft protection alone on its own? And then secondly, what does that cost? What does Legal Shield itself cost for the personal plan, for the business plan, and then, how does it work with an employer? Let's walk through that really quickly.
That would take us quite a while to go through all the pricing. I would love to talk to individuals. It depends on their situation on, is it in a business? Is it personal? Is it this? Is it that? Do they want legal? Do they want, right? There's just so many versions.
Okay.
I would love to talk to people, and they can, if you can get my information to them, it's a discussion. It's
Let
me
me
getting
let me
information.
rephrase the question.
Mhm.
Compared to a $200 an hour to $800 an hour lawyer with a $10,000 retainer, how does this compare?
Oh my, it's so different. Okay, let's just take our family legal plan. It's about $30 a month, right? And we connect you to top rated law firms. We connect you to a nationwide network of law firms, first of all. So if you have issues in other states, right? And you're not paying, we don't, when you're talking to a lawyer, there's no clock running. And before we do anything, I got sued once. I would have had to put down a $10,000 retainer. Well, I simply called Legal Shield, and it was in another state. They referred me back to that state. I didn't put down any retainers, nothing. I was covered because there are trial defense hours that cover you. And they won that case. And the lawyer even said it had to do with a woman trying to buy my house. The lawyer called and said, "We won that case and she still wants to buy your house." And I just about freaked out. No, I don't want to deal with her. And the lawyer, he laughed and he said, "Don't worry. We told her to take a hike. You're never dealing with her again." And I sat there and realized that didn't cost me one dime above my $30 a month. I'll never let this go.
Right. Well, and
Right.
so to that end, Jane, you mentioned having a conversation with you. So let's get your contact information out to everybody now. How does somebody get in touch with you? What are the best ways to do that?
First of all, if they're all on LinkedIn, I mean, many are, that's probably where they're seeing us. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I think it's Jane Lehman 1 on LinkedIn. But my phone number, am I allowed to give that?
Yeah, please.
My number is 810-333-3442. Or
And
you
you can work anywhere in the United States.
anywhere in the United States and Canada.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Excellent. So I guess to finalize things, is there anything you want to leave our listeners with as any other pieces of advice? We've got about a minute left.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is don't take it lightly, because identity theft is growing. We're not trying to scare anybody. We're trying to inform you. My job is to educate people, and if they see the value in it, then we can work together. If not, that's okay too.
Understood completely. Jane, thank you for being here. I'm going to go ahead and jump
Thank
out and
you.
close this all up. And folks, I will say this right up front, that I've known Jane for quite a while. I've known actually quite a few people. I've been a customer both on the business and personal side of Legal Shield. I don't often advocate that way, but I will say that my experiences have been 97% awesome and 3% good. So, there's no real dissatisfaction, and there's very rarely a point where you say, "I can't believe that I'm spending money on this." You say a lot of times, "I can't believe I'm getting what I'm getting for what I'm spending on this." And we use it in our business a lot, with Healthcare Evolution Group and with Domestic Growth Capital. Both, we've got separate memberships for both of them. And the one thing we didn't touch on is that the other thing you can pick up is a will, through the Legal Shield side of things, which is also tremendously important to have. So, it's another reason to talk to Jane. Take the time, make the effort to reach out. She's an amazing person. If you didn't pick that up from the interview, I'll tell you, she's one of the most authentic people that I interacted with. She's also happens to be a great networker, so she's a lot of fun to talk to that way as well. And very, very excited to be able to ask you to share this with folks that you know, whether it's family members, whether it's employers, whether it's an entrepreneurs group, whatever it is. This is really important information to get out there. So take the time, and also take the time to browse through all the other guests that are on the channel here. It's under uniquenessispower.com. We've got dozens and dozens of episodes at this point. We're not quite to 100 yet, but we're getting closer. And it's been an absolute thrill to be able to host this show, produce this show, run this show with great guests like Jane. Take the time, spread this news, let people know about this. And certainly, absolutely realize, if you're going to get into something that is supposed to protect you, get the best protection possible. There's no reason to skimp at all here. The costs of this are so low for what you pay against what you would end up paying later. it's the best insurance I can think of against ID theft. So thank you very much again, Jane, for taking the time. I'm Andy Grider, host and producer of of Unique This Week, a production of Uniqueness is Power. And we'll see you next week. Thanks.
Thank you.